One of the things that my parents did for me, of the many things, is they inspired me to go into medicine. And they did that not by telling me it's a great profession, but by the strength of their example. My dad is a family physician. My mother has no training in medicine, but somehow has managed to learn quite a lot of medicine over the years. In fact, she delights in making surprise diagnoses when nobody thinks she's listening. And she's often right. And I was too young to understand this science, but I was not too young to understand that there was compassion that was flowing both ways between my parents and their patients, and from their patients to them. And that beautiful example of building relationships with people, relationships that were based on trust, that became my definition of medicine. That's what I wanted to be a part of when I grew up. That's ultimately why I became a doctor. And so those basic lessons that my parents taught me very young, I tend to remember. And I remembered them when I entered medicine for the first time, and I began to realize that that beautiful picture I had of medicine, of the relationships that were built between my parents and their patients, seemed somehow more distant and complicated. Instead of spending all that time with patients, I found myself going through reams and reams of medical records, trying to piece together who this patient was. Sometimes even losing sight of the fact that perhaps the most important part of who they were might be found in a conversation with them and not in dense charts and files. I also found myself spending more and more time in a culture that seemed to tell us that strength was defined by the length of your workday and not by the size of your heart. And that was very striking to me, unexpected, but powerful as well. And we know that medicine has a very powerful culture, which is why I think the Gold Foundation's white coat ceremony, inspired by Arnold and Sandra Gold, is such a stroke of genius. I went through that white coat ceremony myself when I was in medical school. And that kind of affirmation of values is what we have to keep doing early, because it's not actually about teaching medical students what values they should have as physicians. It's about preventing them from losing the values that they already have. So the challenge is, how do we rebuild a more connected America? And I think that to do that, there are at least three things that we need. We certainly need more empathy, the ability to see ourselves in another. We certainly need more optimism, the ability to continue believing in others, even when they disappoint us from time to time, even if they disagree with us vehemently. And we need courage as well. Courage to act on that desire to build connection, even when it seems scary. Again, knowledge that we had, wisdom that we were born with, but that we have often forgotten. If you think about empathy and optimism and courage, I believe that these are all manifestations of something deeper, a deeper root energy. And that energy is actually love. I've long believed that there are really only two forces that guide our actions in this world, and those are love and fear, and manifestations of them. Now, love sometimes manifests as compassion, as empathy, as optimism, as courage, as generosity. And fear has its many manifestations as well, as anger, as insecurity, as jealousy, and sometimes as outright fear. But our world right now is locked in a struggle between love and fear. And the question is, which way will the balance go? And while we can't predict the future, we knew that in that struggle between love and fear, that we had to do everything we could to make sure that the balance tipped towards love. It's also why I am so grateful that the Gold Foundation is there to be a strong voice for love, not just in our profession, but in our practice as human beings, of interacting with each other and of contributing to society. And I want to thank all of you for being a part of the struggle and for choosing to help us create a world that is founded in love, a world that we can create for our children, and a world that we can ultimately be most proud of. Thank you so much.